Hi, good evening to one and all who has joined this live session. We'll just wait for people to join in. Hi. Hi, Camilla. Hi, Shivesh. Let's just wait for more people to join our session. Today we'll be having Dhruva Bhat with us from Lumiere Education to talk about how to start your journey as a social entrepreneur. Let's just wait for more people to join in. Okay, so since we have some time for us to begin the session, let me just introduce you our college versus college fair. We have more than 25 colleges and universities across 11 countries coming together in one platform to talk about their academics. Yeah, hi Camilla. To talk about their academics, their location, community, application process, student life, and much more. So this 3-day event, it has a very unique format. It's 75 minutes long webinars, and it's divided into 15-minute session, wherein 2 sessions will share their information in tandem. And it's an ideal event for grade 9 to 12 students. Since this is a very unique format, we will not be recording the sessions, or we wouldn't be uploading it on our YouTube channel. So we request you to join the session, and you can register using the link that is provided in the bio. Hi everyone who has joined. Yes, so Education is joining us to talk about how to start your entrepreneurial journey. Hi, Dhruva.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Good evening to Yes, we can hear you, Dhruva.
Wonderful.
Hi to
So
everyone
excited
who
to
has
be
joined.
here, and nice to see the numbers slowly ticking up. I'm really excited to be speaking with you and sharing our story a little bit more.
Yes. So Dhruva from Lumiere Education is here with us, and I am Helen, corporate communications expert at the Next Genius Foundation. So it's time for us to begin, Dhruva. So let's start,
kick it
and
off.
people will be joining. Yes. So before we begin the session, let me briefly introduce Dhruva to you all. Dhruva is the director of Lumiere Research Scholar Program, and he is a Ph.D. candidate at Oxford's Department of International Development. Before this, he graduated from Harvard with an undergrad degree in economics, and from Oxford with an MPhil in development studies as a Rhodes Scholar. Welcome, Dhruva, to Next Genius webinars and also this live session.
It's such a pleasure to be here and to be sharing a little bit about entrepreneurship, especially when you're thinking about entrepreneurship from the perspective of making a positive change in the world.
Great. So before we begin the session, let me tell you that feel free and post any questions regarding how to start a business, especially a social enterprise, and whatever you feel about it. So feel free, post your questions in the comment section below, and we'll be taking it up in between. Yes, so let's begin the session. So Dhruva, could you tell us what inspired you exactly to begin Lumiere Education?
Yeah, of course. So it goes back, I think, to growing up in Chennai in South India. And I went to a CBSE school that I think was excellent in terms of its academics. It was very strong. It sent a lot of students to the IITs, to the NITs, to top medical colleges. But there were 2 ways in which I think it was seriously lacking. The first was there was very little international exposure, in that hardly anyone from my school applied abroad for undergrad, and it was considered really hard for students to apply abroad. People used to think that it's not possible to get scholarships and so on and so forth. The other thing is that certainly in my school and in my broader community, there wasn't much of a research culture. So I thought about this a lot. And growing up, I don't think I knew a single person who had a PhD. So, when I entered undergrad, I had no conception of what research meant and what it took to do a PhD and so on and so forth. So both of those, I think, are things that I overcame over the course of my time in school. And then I ended up applying to universities in the US and going to Harvard. And there I really dove deep into research and enjoyed it a lot. But when I started talking with my friend Steven, so Steven and I run Lumiere together, and he and I actually met in a research program when we were sophomores at Harvard. And so we were talking about this research program that we had done as undergrads and how it had really changed the trajectory of our lives and how much it had opened our eyes to the opportunities that are available out there. And we started thinking, this is something that more students should be doing, and more students should be doing it at an earlier age, because if I had had that experience in high school, it would have made my career aspirations so much clearer. It would have prepared me for university so much more. It would have made me a more globally engaged and interested citizen in a way that I think I wasn't going into college. And so that's where it kicked off. We saw this real need for research opportunities and a real hunger among talented, motivated, driven students to try and do more research. And so we figured we would try it out and ran our first cohort with just about 12 students, and it only grew from there.
Superb. It was very interesting to know how you started your journey. Now let's move on to the next question. That is, what are some of the points or plan you conceptualized and worked on before Lumiere becoming a reality? And how has your priority changed over the years?
Yeah, I think so. When we began, we had some foundational touchstones that we thought were non-negotiable. So some of those were, we wanted to make sure that we had a one-on-one experience for students, because that sort of individualized mentorship is really, really important and something that can be as technical and specific as research, where you're studying this incredibly narrow question in one corner of economics or in one specific area of genetics, and you require quite advanced support. So the one-on-one part of it was something that we decided was crucial to the experience of doing good research. The other thing that we felt was really important was ensuring that we were standing by the incredibly high academic principles that top universities globally stand for. And so what that meant was we had to be very clear about the standard of work that we expected of students, our selection criteria for students, provide them the support and structure needed in order for them to achieve that output. So the second one was a focus on academic standards and academic integrity. We had to teach things like citation styles, which high school students in India and abroad often aren't exposed to. And finally, we wanted a focus on excellence. So we wanted to make sure that the mentors that these students would be working with weren't just any mentors, sort of people who had some experience in the field. We wanted them to have the best, because we really believe that there are some students, some very lucky students in the US who live close to top universities, who go to very excellent high schools, who have access to these opportunities already. But just because you happen to be growing up in India or happen to be growing up in Vietnam shouldn't stop you from having access to those types of mentors and that quality of an experience. And so we decided very specifically to focus on having PhD mentors from top research universities in the US and the UK as a way of ensuring that the students had something to aspire to, and students had access to mentors who could really inspire them and teach them and guide them in the best way possible. So I'd say those were the cornerstones of the program: one-on-one, strong mentors, strong quality of work coming out of it. And then we built the program around it. And as we got to know our students better and their needs better, we started understanding more what we could do. So, for example, we started structuring the program better. We offered a longer version of the program because students realized that some of them wanted to take this forward. We started to understand better what the high school publication landscape looks like, and started training our students in that a little bit more. So basically, as we learned and and as we got to know the students better, started to try and help them and support them even better for their future endeavors and in their research. So that's I think how we have built up over time and gone from our first cohort to our latest cohort.
That's very interesting, Dhruva. We have a question from Shivesh over here. He has asked, what do you exactly look for when you're building a team?
That's a great question. I'll answer this question in two ways. So what we look for when we're recruiting mentors, who are the ones who are working one-on-one with the students, are a couple of things. We're looking for people who are excellent in their topic, but that's usually a given because we tend to recruit from incredibly qualified universities, and the kinds of people who become PhD students there really know what they're doing. So the fact that they are strong in their field is a given. But the two other things that we are looking for are, we are looking for people who are able to explain their research effectively and communicate very clearly. So that's really important to us because you can be a genius in machine learning, but explaining that to a 17-year-old is a totally different skill set that not everyone has. And the second part of it is you need to be good at communication, and then you need to want to communicate well. So that passion for mentorship and that passion for guiding the next generation of researchers is something that we actively seek out in our mentors. So one of our favorite things to ask our mentors when we're interviewing them is, who is the most important mentor in their lives? Because we think that question really reveals, do they have they had the experience of having a life-changing mentor? What are the qualities they look for in a mentor so that they can then emulate that when they're working with students? So when we're considering mentors, we're looking for excellence, we're looking for communication, and we're looking for a passion for mentorship and for passing on the skills and knowledge that they have. When we're building up our internal team in terms of, the folks who are managing the program, doing outreach and so on, we're looking for similar skill sets in terms of really strong work ethic, high quality of work, and a passion for the mission of Lumiere, which is making research opportunities available globally.
Great, Dhruva. Since you talked about your mentors, could you tell us who your mentor was?
Yeah, I've been so lucky to have an incredible set of mentors all through high school and undergrad, and now in my PhD as well. Two of them, which are quite obvious that I'll mention, but I won't go into more detail on, are my supervisor for my undergrad thesis, this incredible professor named Dale Jorgensen, who used to be head of the economics department at Harvard, who is really one of the foremost professors in the field, given that once in the middle of class, he said, "Oh, I just came back last week from Japan, where I was advising the Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, on Japan's economic conditions." And so that was the sort of man he was. And yet every week he would meet one-on-one with me and walk me through my thesis, answer the dumbest questions I had, and would go above and beyond that. And he would host a Halloween party every year in his own home, where he and his wife would have all of this food ready for us, invite over a number of his students and supervisees, and we would all get to hang out and meet them in an informal setting as well, because he thought that was important to build that connection and build that community. And then, of course, my supervisor currently during the PhD as well, Professor Nandini Gupta, is an incredible inspiration, because she is once again was head of the department at Oxford and has a number of students that she is supervising currently, and yet she has the time and energy to follow up with each of us individually, especially during a pandemic when things are difficult for her, of course, but also for the students. And the amount of empathy and patience that she has worked with all of us on is really indicative of the quality of her mentorship and the quality of her as a person. So the two supervisors I've had in my academic journey I've been so lucky to have them, and I think they serve as truly great mentors and models for me when I think about mentorship.
That's wonderful, and thanks for sharing about your mentors, about your supervisors during your research journey. Now we have a very interesting question, that is, knowing what you know now, is there anything that you would have done differently when you were first starting out?
Yeah, I think absolutely. There's so many things that we learned just by sort of doing it and then figuring it out as it went along. I think the biggest thing that we learned along the way is that students, and especially high school students, appreciate and need a lot more structure than we had initially envisioned. So in our very first cohort, our structure for the program was very flexible. You could sort of meet whenever you wanted. You only had a couple of deadlines for the first draft and the final draft. And we quickly realized that what that resulted in was students, especially those who were doing research for the first time, feeling a little lost in the process, not knowing exactly where they were going, what the goals were, what the deadlines were. And so that's when we revised. We went back to the drawing board, saw all of the places where we may have gone wrong, and created the structure where students have to turn in a research question and then a research proposal and an outline and a first draft and a final draft. And those milestones along the way are not there because, we're cruel, but because we genuinely think that that helps provide guidance for students, especially more inexperienced ones. And so that was an example of where we learned about our students as we worked with them and responded to those needs and changed up what we did to better help them out. And that's one of so many examples of where I think we messed up and students called us out rightfully and said, hey, this isn't working for us. And then we had to change up what we did for future cohorts.
Interesting, really interesting. Now, we would like to know some of the things that you do on a day-to-day basis. So what are some of your daily habits and what are some values students have to inculcate to become a successful social entrepreneur? And what does a typical day look like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, as you know, I am currently working on Lumiere as well as my PhD. So I don't think I have a typical day. There are days where I spend more time on Lumiere. There's days when I spend more time on the PhD, and it really varies on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis. But broadly speaking, I'd say it begins with a team-wide check-in where we have all of the members of the team that are available, get on a Zoom call together in the morning, do a round of hellos, check in on how we're doing, and that serves as a really energizing way to start the day. And then we just say, okay, what are our to-dos for the day? So that sets our priorities, and it also allows us to keep each other accountable and say, hey, just want to add one more to-do to your list because we had discussed this yesterday and you need to follow up on that. And it also serves as an unblocker. So if there are any questions that anyone has that they need quick input from another person on the team on, they're able to say, I have a quick question. Do you think you can answer this? So it starts with that daily stand-up where we go through our to-dos together and hype each other up for the day ahead. And then over the course of the day, it really varies. There are calls both internally with our team on things like strategy, on things like dealing with situations as they come up. There are external calls with students, with parents, with partners. And then, of course, you need to set aside, and this is probably the most important piece of advice I've gotten in and that I pass on as well, is if you're leading an organization or a team, you need to set aside quiet time as well, where you can reflect on how things are going, where you can set goals and priorities for the future, where you can create things, where you can write material, you can write or create new structures for the organization and what you do. So that quiet reflection and creation time is also very important to build into your schedule. So that's a combination of things that I do over the course of the day, in addition to the usual eating, sleeping, exercising, and probably trying to catch an episode of Netflix whenever I can.
Superb. Now we have one more question from Shivesh, that is, what advice would you give to someone just starting a social enterprise?
That's a really thoughtful question to you, and I can't limit myself to one piece of advice, so I will do a couple of pieces of advice, and I think these probably go in order. The first one is, be very clear about what the mission of your organization is. What is the social change you wish to see in the world? What's the problem that you're seeking to address? And that becomes what motivates you, motivates your team, motivates others to help you. The second thing is then do your work. Think hard, read up, do interviews with people in the field to understand the problem and understand what other organizations and groups are trying to do, and then put together an approach that you think works for yourself. So there's no shortcut to doing the work, and it's really important that you do that. The final piece of advice that I give, which I guess if I could say this to myself looking back as well is ask for and seek out help. And if you are driven by a mission that is meaningful and it's clear that you have put in the work and thought about this hard, it's actually pleasantly surprising to see how many people, including very busy and very talented people, will make some time for you to give you advice, to give you support, to open doors for you. And so that's something that I'd say is really important in ensuring that you know that you're on track and that you have the resources needed to succeed.
Those are some great pieces of advice. Thank you so much, Dhruva. Now we have another question from it's Jeshta. Yes. What has been your most significant achievement and your most significant failure, and what did you learn from them?
What a good question. Let me think about this for a second. I think the biggest achievement would be that I just seeing the students who have gone through the program and who months later, when they're going off to university, have written back to say, this has made a change in my life. This has, for the first time as a woman in chemistry, has helped me see that there's a place for me and that this isn't just a field for men, who have said doing this research program has made clearer for me what I want to study at university and has prepared me well for it, that it has helped me ace an interview when I was doing another internship and seeking to get a job. It's when we get those pieces of feedback from students that are heartfelt, that we haven't asked for, but they're emailing us off their own accord to tell us. That's probably the most heartening thing to see, because it demonstrates that we have done a good job in creating a program that has genuinely helped students. So that would be by far the most rewarding part of this experience. I think the failures that we have seen is over the course of running this program over multiple cohorts. Of course, there are instances where one or two students don't complete the program successfully or struggle to do the program. And I think the biggest sense of failure you feel is when a student, and we had this, I think, in our spring cohort of last year, where a student was feeling overwhelmed, had a lot on their plate, had schoolwork and had extracurricular activities and the research program, and didn't ask for help early enough. And that was a tremendous failure on our part, because we should have noticed that student was struggling and then actively sought out that student, offered them extra support, extra help to make sure that student is able to complete successfully. And so that's when we recalibrated, said, okay, there are things that are happening where students are falling off the track that we aren't recognizing. And so we instituted a red flag system where mentors and students can let us know when things are going, when they're worried that things are going off, so that we can then proactively step in, reach out to the student, reach out to the parent, and see what we can do to set them back on course. So that was a failure that was quite saddening at the time, but that I think we learned from and grew as an organization. Yeah.
That was inspirational, both your success and your failure story, and from that, what you have learned in your life. Super. Going on to the next question, how exactly do you plan for the future of your business?
Yeah, the goal is really to try and make these research opportunities available to as many students as possible around the globe. And so there's two aspects to that. The first is to continue offering the program that we offer and try and do more outreach to schools, to counselors, to individual students, to try and get the word out about the program and ensure that people from around the world have the opportunity to apply if they want to do that. Simultaneously, the second priority in that is not just that students have heard about the program, but truly exceptional students who don't have the financial resources to pay tuition for a program like this are also able to do this. So over the last year, we've given over $50,000 in financial aid, and that's a number that we seek to keep growing and increasing in the years to come. So ensuring that our need-based financial aid program is robust and provides for students who truly deserve these opportunities but may not be able to afford it. Those I'd say are the priorities for the organization when we're thinking about where we want to go in the next 2-3 years.
Okay, now we have a very interesting question, that is, with what was your biggest aha moment in life?
Um, I think the biggest aha moment is always, I've never considered myself an entrepreneur, but looking back, I think that it has been a fixture in my life. When I was in, I want to say, third or fourth standard, a couple of friends and I started this newsletter that we would circulate to all of our friends and that we charge a subscription fee for, and that we use as an opportunity to get material out and share creativity. When I was in undergrad, I was president of the Harvard debate team, and through that, we organized the first ever competition for school students in as part of our debating society. I was also part of this organization called the Harvard College US India Initiative, where we organized and I was director of operations for the first ever conference that we held in India. So looking back, I can see that I've always been interested in and participated in building these institutions and setting up these things that hopefully have a very long life. And the newsletter died out with us in fourth standard, but the other two things continue to exist, both the Harvard College World Schools Debating Championships as well as the Harvard College US India Initiative Conference. And with both of those, as well as with Lumiere, I think the biggest aha moment is when you sort of are thinking through all of these things that you need to get in place for this to work out. And there are moments when it feels overwhelming and it feels like it won't come through and things break down and you're staying up at 2 a.m. trying to fix these things. And the moment where it all comes together, when the first day of the program, that first day of the conference, when it's in front of you and you launch into it and things play out, that's an aha moment like very few others that can give you such a sense of achievement and satisfaction.
Great, Dhruva. Okay, now let's move on to marketing. What marketing tactics do you find are the most effective ones for reaching out to new customers or for reaching out to students? What do you feel?
Yeah, I think the good thing about a program like Lumiere is the need for it is so obvious because of how few research opportunities there are available for students, and the sort of benefits of it are also pretty straightforward in terms of the knowledge that you get and how it helps you decide your next steps. So when we think about marketing, it's more getting the word out about the program to as many people as possible. Because if people haven't heard about it, they can't apply to it. And so we reach out to, as I mentioned earlier, schools, counselors, to admissions, to guidance counselors, and so on, to try and make sure that they are aware of the program through emails, through Instagram, through speaking at conferences, in order to try and say, hey, here we are, here's what Lumiere is about, you should consider doing it for yourself or for your kids. Usually that's enough. But then, of course, there are schools, there are areas, there are organizations where research is less heard of. And there you have to actually do the hard work of building awareness, of going in and, doing webinar after webinar in schools that says, here is what research is. Here's what the research process looks like. No, it's not just in the sciences that you can do research. You can do research in the social sciences. You can do research in the humanities. Dispel these myths, comfort students that it's possible to do that at the school level, and basically build that knowledge and awareness that this is something that is possible for them to do and interesting for them to do. So that's definitely a second part of our outreach efforts, is building that awareness and knowledge about research as well.
Great, Dhruva, for sharing some tactics that you found are really effective. Moving on to our last question, please feel free to post any questions that you have, those who have joined recently. Yes, moving on to our last question, that is, how do you come up with new ideas for your business and what goals are you working towards to achieving in the near future?
Yeah, that's a good question. And there are two models of doing this, right? The first model is to say, hey, I, as the founder of this organization, Stephen and I know best. We have this great idea. We're going to launch it and students will come to it. That tends not to work because what we think is useful or what we think is good is often not what people need or want to begin with. So we much prefer the alternative method of growing as an organization, which is doing something, and as we do it, in this case, doing a 12-week research program, seeing where are the pain points that still exist? What are parents and students enjoying and asking for more of, or missing out on and saying, we would like you to do this as well? And then responding to that to say, hey, all of these parents are asking for a longer version of the program because students have enjoyed their research and want to continue on with it, but don't have the ability to do it outside. So then saying, okay, now that we have a 3-month version of the program, now we want to consider building a year-long version of the program where students get to work with the mentor over a much longer period of time and build something even more substantial. So that's been our philosophy and model, which is do something, speak to the folks who are doing it, listen to them and see what are they facing problems with, what are they missing out on, what are they liking and would like more of, and then think about whether it's feasible for us to provide that, and then try that out. And based on that, I'm sure we'll have more learnings in the years to come that will then spark ideas for new areas that we can grow in as well.
That is again a great piece of advice for all of us to follow and idealize in our life. And with that, we come to the end of the session. Before the final piece of advice, if you have any final questions or anything, you can feel free and post it in the comment section below. Yes, Dhruva, what will be your final piece of advice to everyone who is watching this live session now?
Wow, I'm all out of advice. I feel like I have been dispensing so much of it over the course of the last of this conversation. And I think that might be a good place to end, which is to say, lots of people have lots of advice to give, and often that advice is conflicting and contradictory and might not apply to your situation. So the best thing you can do is to build up your skills, to build up your knowledge of a particular context or problem or situation, to get as many external opinions, especially from knowledgeable and skilled people in that area as possible. But then at the end of the day, for you to sit down and think through how do all of these things fit together, what applies in my context and what doesn't, and then take those calls that allow you to say, I will take all of this information that I have and use it in the most productive way possible to start something of my own. So I guess my piece of advice was don't just listen to my advice and do more than just that. So maybe that's the best place to stop.
That is a very different piece of advice and a suggestion to all who are watching. Thank you, Dhruva, for joining us. And before we close this session, I'd like to share one resource with the students that is about our college versus college fair that's happening on September 23rd, 24th, and 25th. That's from Thursday to Saturday. It starts at 6 p.m. The most exciting part is we have almost 30 universities and colleges across 11 countries attending the fair. And what's unique is the format in itself. It's a 75 minutes long webinar, and each college will be presenting for 15 minutes, and it will be done simultaneously. Yes, and this is an ideal event for students from grade 9 to 12th, and it will not be recorded or uploaded on YouTube because of the specific format. And we have an amazing giveaway, so go to our Instagram page and check it out. And if you want to register for the college versus college fair, the link is on the bio. With that, we come to the end of an amazing session. Thank you so much, Dhruva, for joining. Have a great weekend to everyone who joined us this evening and made it really engaging and entertaining. Thanks a lot.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you to everyone who tuned in. And I hope to see a lot of you apply to the Lumiere program. And if not, or in addition, I hope that a lot of you start your own social ventures that seek to make a real impact in the world. That would be the most heartening thing to see, and good luck in all of your journeys.
Thank you, Dhruva. Thank you to all who joined us. And this is Dhruva and Helen signing off. Bye. See you next week.